Orkney is full of archaeology. There's probably very few places in the world where you live with the past as much and as obviously as you do in Orkney.
What we've discovered is a Neolithic site. You're about 5,000 years old. In its heyday, when you did have this big walled enclosure and all these massive structures, it wasn't a domestic site. It's way beyond the scale of that. When you look at some of the buildings here, compared with your normal Neolithic house, you could fit 3 or 4 of them inside each one of these buildings. They're truly monumental in nature.
Because everything's built in stone, you have a record here that cannot be underestimated and which has to be treated with great care. We know that a lot of what's done in stone here is done in wood and disappeared in other places. So this is the kind of marker and insight into other people's lives and how they lived and how they did things.
Yeah, the money is. Andy sandwich. I like this, as if I'd done it on purpose, Dan.
Yeah, just let us check out
Picture number 8, and it's the one right in front of you down here, pointing. This is it. It's big. We're going to work out how big it is, and to do that you are mentally going to go walkabout, but only mentally, don't worry. What we have down here is an end wall. Can you see it? You're going to mentally hop up onto the wall and then walk along 2-3 meters that direction and then turn left 90 degrees. Keep going until you get to about the last tire on that side. And that is about the back wall. The back wall is a bit knocked about. So this is an enormous structure. It's important, we think, that people understand, get a grip of what happened recently and in the far distant past. Also so as they don't think of the people of the distant past as being necessarily so different from themselves. In that hole we found the first painted stone from the Neolithic. It really surprised us. It has a wavy design on it. Since then we've found painted stone in many of the structures here.
They find all sorts of different things. They find pot, they find stone, they find bits of pumice, they find bits of rock that might be something and they might not be something.
It's just
it looks like, yeah. Yeah. If you get a fine straight on ants.
yeah.
Thank you.
I'm pretty sure it's pot. It's got no kind of charcoaliness about it, but I think it's so old.
I'll show you this one's strange.
You know, like mud, cracks and dries.
Yeah.
And you'll see all sorts of patterns on the beach.
Yeah.
You managed to sort out the levels from mine.
Actual art sometimes is so
One of them's in our paper record, taking exactly the one, and I'm going to check it against our computer record.
Out of averaging limit.
The number then. Because
No, I've got
as well.
26557 written down. Was it
Maybe that was the one that I was doubting about.
Is it 26551 then? Must have been 551 and not 557.
Right, we'll just edit that one then.
Yeah, it's a pot one.
Lots of things to be told from what we're getting off this site. The tools that they're using, it's probably endless. You're thinking about how a piece of pot, how the pottery is made. You're thinking about where the clays come from. You're thinking about how very, very thick this piece of pot is. You're thinking about the fact that it's really almost straight, which means that you've got an incredibly big circle, which means that this is some monster pot. And we can start thinking about any kind of residues on the inside of the pot that might tell us what was cooked in the pot. We might have material inside that allows us to date.
Keep coming back to this site, and I'm reluctant to leave because, one, the archaeology is phenomenal. I mean, you don't really get stuff like this. The Ness is unique. And then again, the team keeps you coming back. I mean, it's a very warm environment to work in.
Aha! That looks like it could be it.
It does.
Ah, that's it, that's the one. Okay, I better write this drawing number down on my thing before I forget. 1205, and that's sheet 20. Hooray!
Does this drawing should go back in the folder?
Yeah. When we're excavating, if you look at the side of the trench that has been cut, you can see very clearly the different layers of soil and the different colours. And it's often easier to see them in a section that's been cut through than it is in plan from above when you're excavating them. So it helps to clarify the relationships between all the different strata of archaeology as you're excavating down. So what this is actually a drawing of a very long what we would call a sondage, which means a sounding, a trench, basically, to expose the different layers within a particular part of the site.
There's a lens here, isn't it? And then the other one tracks through. So, yeah, I've got a point there. So that is 255. Yeah.
So just do a dash line?
Just do a dash line for now, yeah.
It's when you put the whole package together, the buildings, the enclosing wall, and all these wonderful artefacts that we're discovering. It just emphasises that this was no ordinary site. It's kind of changing our perceptions and kind of revolutionising some of our thoughts. You could take it as far to say rewriting bits of prehistory.
And we've got some retouch along the edge. That's gorgeous.
As I tell all the students, and particularly some of the young kids who work with us, and they find something and say, "You're the first person to have touched that in 5,000 years. Who touched it the last time?" And you kind of think, who was it? What were they like? What's he, she, or child like?
It's great to have artefacts, to have finds, to have structures and buildings, but the real aim of it is people. We want to understand the people of the past. And if you understand the people that have come before you, sometimes you have a better understanding of yourself.